listening to us. Okay, so I put these slides together just to kind of help us think through what sort of an arrangement and agreement we would want. And so I'm starting off with the concept of, do we understand our own needs? And by that, you know, I think we do, but perhaps not in toto. We've started the requirements, and once we have requirements, we need to work with the openware developers on the specific capabilities and have them tell us the cost and timeline. And I do believe we need some help on the business development side. Don has access to some people who will fund, he believes, a move toward wellness, like the one that Wellness Ledger is suggesting. And at least he believes that. And
okay.
which is good. I mean, it can't hurt to have other people looking for angels. But he's also working, in fact, he and I are both working. Next week we have a meeting with Corio, that who is our healthcare well, they are healthcare information exchange, so HIE, right? That's what it is, and for the entire state of Colorado. And they have a very strong interest in this patient portal, which Medicare likes to call, CMS, the Medicare organization, likes to call a shared care plan. And that's the thing that Westminster Medical is trying to get developed as well. So from a business development side, I think Don offers a lot of capability in a way that would be very helpful to us. So in addition to work we might want to do on software requirements, I think you want to consider his assistance on the funding and alliances, and to that extent, that involves some strategy as well. We have some strategy, but it really isn't complete, and we ought to talk about that, and we will. There's a slide that sets that up later. The other thing we need to be sure of are what are our business drivers, and in particular, do we still agree on what the pitch deck outlines? You remember the pitch deck had those two matrices that weren't part of the main presentation. They were in the back, but the things that talked about tokenization and as well as who's paying what to whom. And we need to be clear on that. I just want to make sure that we still, after all the people we've talked to, we still agree on that. And that if we've got any evidence, that's something we should have available in a business plan. And I think given where we are, we need to start developing a business plan so we can write down all of these assumptions and also think through what alternatives we might have. You know, if something doesn't work out, what do? We don't want to start rethinking a strategy at that point in time. We want to think about it now. So that's kind of what I think we have to do in order to be ready to pull together an agreement that Don will understand. See, I have this because I'm in between the devil and the deep blue sea. We won't talk about who the deep blue sea is or the devil, but the fact that I'm there, I see a lot on both sides, but I'm not sure what you guys, in particular, Gaia and Dawa, really want to do with the business. So I need your input, or I can't really represent Wellness Ledger as well as I should. So if we, oh dear, why is this not working? I see, I have to do that. Okay. So I thought we should start out understanding our priorities, and because we got to frame this in what is it we want to do and how quickly do we want to do it. And so I kind of created a list off the top of my head, and I don't know if this is the right order. I'm sure some of these are the right things, but I thought we should discuss this and make sure we're all in agreement. So what do you think?
I'd like to ask a question about Arcana Light.
Okay, yes.
Is it already set up for tokenization?
No.
Does it have any blockchain integration?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, neither does DClinic. And the issue there is that the blockchain really has to be integrated with Arcana Light and Arcana and Alchemy for it to work properly, because we need a global, there has to be a way for people to find people, for a practitioner to say, well, Mary Jones is my patient. I want to see her record. And there has to be a way to look Mary Jones up and to find Mary Jones and to be able to log in, assuming they have permission to be able to log in and see that whole portal, the shared care plan. And that's what I'm calling the global directory, and that's got to be DID based, because we have to have a way to control who can see what. You know, the patient needs that control, and we need to have a way to securely provide access to the right people. So that's an extremely important piece, which is why I have it on the slide that says this is what a demo could be. That integration is necessary. There's no particular issue in creating that integration, because it's primarily an issue of access security and the ability to support the tokenization applications that are running on the blockchain. But those are fairly simple development activities. And if we, as we work out on the user interface and the user experience, we're going to decide where we want those to appear on the screens for both the patient and the providers. And that will basically, that's the more complex part of the whole thing. The rest of it is, you press the button with your cursor and it goes. So I'm not terribly concerned about the blockchain integration piece. It's only that it's a question of time frame. Is everything ready to be integrated? And we don't have any real blockchain infrastructure. I know one of Moses's guys out in India has been studying that and trying to create a demo of it. And if that's there, that's I've already talked to the developers about their thoughts about it, and they're reasonably familiar with blockchain interfaces. So I don't think there's going to be any issue at all, and they don't either.
And then you brought up this question about whether we still agree on the pitch deck and what the pitch deck outlines. So I assume there were some things that you flagged where you weren't sure whether we wanted to still keep that, right? Would you mind sharing what those things maybe were, where you weren't necessarily sure that we wanted to keep them?
Well, it wasn't so much being sure. I wanted to make sure that we still agreed to it, because you've talked to more people and Guy has talked to more people.
I see. Okay.
And that's what I was concerned about. I didn't want to assume that something that we did a few weeks ago stood the test of time, so to speak. So we can go to that directly if you want.
Well, one thing for me that I have a question about is if we have a utility token on the ledger that we can use to also purchase services, what happens to the service and sales taxes that normally the government would charge if you were to use cash or a credit card or a debit card to pay for services within certain communities where there are taxes applied?
Right.
Has anyone come across that, and what were some of the solutions?
Well, the Solve.care has come across that. You know, our intention was to integrate with their payment services. And as part of that, you know, the tax calculations have to be in there.
And they have already integrated that. So they have basically provided for that fluid integration into the software platform that taxes can be part of the tokenized exchange.
That's right. What I need to do, Solve.care still has not provided me with any in-depth information about their platform. They say, go to the white paper. And you go to the white paper and they talk all about the different kinds of tokens and stuff. It doesn't, I don't remember it directly talking about taxation. You got to get into a deeper level in order to do that. And they haven't been willing really to spend any time with us because they're busy, right? And we don't have funding and those kinds of issues. So I'm still hopeful that we can do that. Let me end the show here and we can go.
So right now we're really resting on consensus funding us or pitching to an alternative source that could fund us.
Yes, that is correct.
And go ahead.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The how do I do this now? So share. So we have consensus as something we want to have happen. That would be the best because it's a combination of funding and visibility, which leads to more funding. There are other possibilities of getting funding. And there's also the fact that you still have stock or can make promises about stock or tokens or whatever. So to some extent, we might be able to convince, and I'm sure Don is really up for this, the ability to use equity as at least part of the funding of what we would want for an MVP, a demo and an MVP.
Okay.
So I don't think we are fully dependent on getting money in the door right this second, but it sure would help.
And what's the news from Heather? I mean, have we, last I heard was that we're waiting on an NDA. And once
we're still waiting on the NDA. I bugged her about it late last week. And I'm going to do it again today. She says that it's not the lawyer's fault. It's her fault that she has to personally start a process that results in us getting an NDA. And she hasn't done it yet. She's busy. And she hasn't written back how the meeting went. That was supposed to set up the healthcare vertical within consensus. I thought that was a done deal. But, I haven't gotten any confirmation from her, and neither has Moses.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's the status of it, but I will keep trying.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, and getting a little more headway on that. I mean, we can only push it so much, I guess, but that would definitely be helpful. I can see that really pushing us to the next platform, being able to move forward. But it seems like right now, a good focal point besides the funding is also, well, like you said, clarifying the pitch deck, but for me, it still looks great. And creating the demo. I mean, getting that underway. How important is that? And when does that need to happen?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I've seen a lot of startups, and the ones that have demonstratable software, it doesn't have to be the whole thing, but some demonstratable software,
Yeah.
and plan to get to an MVP are the ones that are considered.
Great.
Unless they are just unbelievable and obvious to the VC or the angel, without having some sort of software that's running, and I mean really running, I don't mean here's a nice demo of screens, because that you could do too, there is a whole lot less interest. And in general, they don't even talk to you.
So we need to have a running demo, which means people are actually participating on it. We have clinics signed up, or does it just need to be, this is how it works and here it is?
We need to have some data in order to be able to show how it works. And again, seeing pretty screens isn't enough. We have to have some real data. And along those lines, I have been talking to the open airware folks about perhaps them being able to convince one of their customers that we could cleanse their data and keep it private, but be able to use it in the demo.
That would be great.
That would be great. And if they don't feel comfortable doing that, we might be able to get Westminster Medical Center to contribute data. So we'll do our best to get some real data in there. Not so much because it's real, but because real data it's usually got enough there to be demonstrable.
Okay.
So in order for us to build on the Allurium software, we would need to work out a deal, and you think they would be willing to base that deal on equity participation, and you also think that they would be interested in playing a role in potentially attracting some angel funding in addition to working out a deal, and then how do you see the actual programming happening that would do the modifications that Wellness Ledger would need to the platform in order to customize it? Is that something that then we would try to handle that on our own?
Oh, no.
The customization, or they would provide that customization and really make it look the way we want it to look?
We have to tell them how we want it to look and operate. That's what the requirements are about, and that's what a UI design would do. And we have to give that to them. In the meantime, you know, they already have Arcana Light, Arcana, and Alchemy are existing products. They don't need to be customized, other than Arcana needs to be told, well, these are the screens, and this is the data that's going on each page of the different screens, and so on. So that's part, and that's in the requirements. So they can set things up, and they can work on the integration with blockchain early on. We've got to give them the requirements. And you know, Guy has already started a requirements document, and I can work on helping to finish that. But in parallel, Gaia in particular, we need you to, you and Dower, to decide on what you want the user interface to look like.
And is that involved in the spec document as well? We need to put that in there?
Well, it can go in there as an attachment. It could be a separate document. But what it has to be is it's got to be visual. We've got to know what the screen's really going to look like, how you want them to really look like. What do you want the branding to look like? Where do you want various buttons to be? And if they're, you know, because, you you know, we're integrating with a blockchain, so there are additional things that weren't in those examples from Westminster Medical that I attached to the last presentation. That shared care plan is from a primary care physician's point of view. And that's the way he likes to see data organized. But he's not the only practitioner that's going to be on this system. So we can use what Westminster put together as kind of a guide, particularly for the allopathic side. But we need to think in terms of, well, when a patient wants to look at their record from all the different providers, what's the best way to do that? There's a chart in there. There's one chart that shows all the providers in a scrolling window, and they can dig into each one of those things, anything they want. But is that the way we want to do it, or do you have other ideas? You and I, and Dower and I have never discussed the user interface. And I know we wanted to have a good look and feel and be easily comprehensible. But there are some things, certainly on the allopathic side, that are only comprehensible after you look at 2 or 3 references. So you need to have places to, to click. What does this health level of understanding mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? You can't put it all on one screen. And we got to think through those issues. And you can't do it by writing it down. You got to kind of just start to draw pictures and start to say, is this something that could work? And maybe talk to some people outside, and create a what do they call that kind of a group? A user group that's going to come together and say, well, I think these screens could be better, and here's where they could be better for me. And just have them look at your first cut at a user interface, and then have them comment. So it's like having your customers come and tell you what they like about your website and what they don't. So we need to go through a process with that. I think that would be very helpful. And no matter what, though, we have to tell the developers, this is exactly what we want the screens to look like. They can figure out, based on the fields, what data has to go in. They had that all laid out in their Arcana product. So basically, they just get a big XML file with all the data from every record that's there, and they can just organize that any which way. They can figure out, okay, these fields they want on this screen, we just direct it to that screen. So for them, they've done this about for a dozen years or so, and before they turned these tools into products, and it seems to work. I was just looking up. They did some work with the HI. There were 2 HIEs in Michigan, and they've done work for them and gotten good quotes and all this other stuff. So they've been doing this quite a while. So that I feel very comfortable with is something they can do. They can do the mapping to the screens, but they don't know what your screens are. They know what Westminster Medical asked for, and they sized that effort for them. I'm sorry? Oh, so they already know what, how to do the Westminster Medical stuff. So they should be able to figure out what of that they can reuse, but we have to tell them what the interface is going to be. So that's kind of a key thing that has to get done. I kind of have some where are you? I think down at the bottom here. Yeah, what are the immediate next steps? We have to decide on the scope of the agreement we want. Do we just want the demo and move to an MVP? which is kind of just a standard software engineering and integration job, or do we want to add to that Don's assistance in getting money and in arranging certain alliances that could be helpful? It's quite conceivable that the Corio people, for example, in Colorado, will help fund Westminster Medical Center, and some of that money will be used to, to provide the basis for a shared care plan, which we can just build our own screens to, or have them build their own screens to. So there are ways to lower the overall cost of doing something like this. In any event, we have to decide on the scope of the agreement. We have to then create an agreement and get it to Allurium, and I suspect we have more experience than others do in doing that. And then we got to finalize the agreements based on what we believe our needs are, and we got to onboard resources to accomplish that, because some of the stuff we may want to do and undoubtedly want to do internally, the Marcom stuff and all the user interface stuff, and the branding of it has to be translated into the same stuff on the website and on white papers and other things, other documents, Marcom literature that we're going to want to have to to get those chiropractors and acupuncturists to sign up. And we got to finish the draft requirements and the design of the user interface. These are things, when I say immediate next steps, I mean, this is like, yeah, we got to do this like right away. This is not, let's wait 2 weeks. This is, get it done.
So I have one more question, Steve,
Yeah.
that has to do with how partnering with Allurium might affect Wellness Ledger's ability to have any kind of proprietary software in the long term, or any kind of, how do you see that happening? I mean, do you see there's how would that impact Wellness Ledger's ability to actually have any kind of original proposition?
Right. Well, the what I would say is, number one, you will have your own market focus and set of people that are using the service, both the patients and the practitioners. So there's a business advantage there, and the stronger we make the proposition, the more we own the marketplace. That's got to be, one of the first things. Then, in terms of actual software intellectual property, that's going to come from us developing either internally or using outside resources, applications like the application you were talking about, Dawa, regarding how you measure your practice, both economically as well as from a health perspective. Those will be your proprietary applications, or Wellness Ledger proprietary applications. And there will undoubtedly be more applications to come. So you will have that at least as intellectual property. Moses's ideas about using Google Nearby and integrating it into this system, that's going to be yours, and so on. It's going to be, most of what we were thinking about for Wellness Ledger was an integration from Clue, and an integration from Solve.care, and integration with Ethereum, and so on. So it was always mostly an integration play. And I think the concept of Wellness Ledger and how it's going to use tokens, that may be patentable as well. I'm sure certain aspects of it will, particularly because it involves aspects of blockchain. And Moses can probably address that better than I can. But there are definitely opportunities for intellectual property. And you're going to think of more as you move on and you talk to practitioners, you're just going to get more ideas about things that Allurium is not going to be doing. Did we lose you, Dawa?
Looks like it.
Oh dear. Well, I guess he had to board his plane. Oh well. Well, it's just you and me, Gaia.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything you're saying makes sense, and I feel like we definitely do. I agree. Need to move forward and quickly. So, what else did you want to mention about about Allurium and moving forward together?
Well, I spent some time yesterday with Don, and he was very excited. He just sees synergy. He worries about making sure that Wellness Ledger owns its stuff, and Allurium owns its stuff. The core that we're doing to create the patient portal, the so-called shared care plan, is it's basically already built as a function to generate it. Owning the designs of it, we certainly own the designs of it. I don't know.
Hello.
Ah, there's Dawa. Okay.
My apologies, I got thrown out.
Oh.
But I heard still you talking about the app idea that I had about the to assess the optimization of the practice, and then I got dropped.
Well, what I was saying was that application is Wellness Ledger proprietary.
Okay.
You can. It's certainly intellectual property that you own. You can probably create and should be able to create a patent around the idea, and that could be, even stronger.
So like applications built on the engine could be potential IPs, but the engine underneath, then basically, since we're putting it together with other partners, there wouldn't be any IP there.
That's right. They will continue to own their IP, and which is fine. I mean, that's okay. You're going to be generating revenue and IP like crazy afterwards, because you're going to learn so much from doing this that you're going to want to add more features. So I just see that as the way you're going to develop the IP.
And Steve, then I guess one more question I'd have for you is, what would be your advice as our VP of Business Development here? If we were to ask you for your advice, what would it be?
So the reason I'm pushing on this, and Moses is pushing on this, is that we need demonstrable software. We have to prove to people that this is a reality and not just a bunch of slides. The fastest way to do that, and the least expensive way to do that, if you started to work with D-Clinic, assuming you could, then because they have something similar, although their business objectives are different. The issue here is that D-Clinic is its own business, and Open Airware is its own business, but it's a software development business. It's not a business that competes with Wellness Ledger. So
yeah, and my worry with D-Clinic is that they are aiming to go global, and they are aiming at the market with ours.
Yeah.
So I think essentially they're more of a competitor than someone who would want to jump on board with us. I can't think of can't think of a selling point for them in competing with us, considering that we don't have anything yet. And
Yeah.
they spent all this money. I mean, I looked at their money that they've spent so far, and I mean, it's a lot of money they've put down, and we haven't put any money down.
Right. Exactly.
That's not going to work, I don't think.
Probably not, but there,
Unless there's some sort of magic in the air that I'm not
you know,
seeing.
I have learned over the years never to doubt, even though I do. You just never know. And anyway, you asked me a direct question, Dow. I'll give you a direct answer. We need working software to demonstrate. We need and to get there. If I use that as a forcing function, so to speak, to get all the requirements out and the design done, then so be it. It needs to be done anyway. Even if you just wanted to show slides, you still need to say this is what it's going to look like. My advice is to move forward with getting a demo done at the minimum. Maybe you want to do more than a demo. My demo was very simple. It was this idea of just using Arcana Light customized as the EWR to take the screens from Westminster Medical Center and change them so they look like what you want. Use them as a sample. But basically, these guys already know what Westminster Medical wanted, and they're not having any problems with it. And it's a reasonable development effort. And
How
then
long does that take to get the Westminster up and running from conception?
2 weeks. It's going to take 2 weeks. Whether we give them I'm sorry. It's going to take 2 months. Sorry.
Okay.
To pull all of that together. This demo stuff. Assuming if Consensus helps us or Moses' guy can get this global directory working for us, it'll be 2 months.
Okay, I think that looking at it, working on two avenues, like working forward with Alorium and everything that you're offering here, and also on the side getting the demo together that would present a user interface, and from that we can edit it and then go from there. I mean, we got to have something to start with. I think
Right.
Otherwise we'll be shooting in the dark. And I think, like, can we finalize that spec sheet? How far along is that at this point? I mean, if we could bring that in and give it to Moses' guy, I mean, I'll give them $500 and they can present us with a demo with the user interface, and then we can say what we like, what we don't, move forward.
Well, that's a good way to go. By demo, you mean it's really a slide layout with the branches.
Yeah, just
that
something
are
we
active. Yeah.
at least get a visual on, to
Yeah.
say,
I think that's a great idea because it helps you visualize it, and you can use that again with some of the practitioners that you know, and get their feedback about whether they think it's still clunky or not, and so on. That's a great idea.
okay. So is there anything we need to do remaining on the spec sheet? What is there left on that? Because that's going to be what we give the person to work off of with the demo.
I will have to look at it again.
Okay.
I didn't think there was enough on there, and so I was going to edit it, which is what you intended, and add the stuff that was missing. Am I not right? It's not all done, is it? I haven't looked at it recently.
Last I gave it to you, so I'm not sure what you had edited or added.
Well, I will certainly jump on that and take a look at it. What I need to leave here with in order to move fast is knowing that you're going to move forward on the UI design. You think the UI is already expressed in the requirements document?
A large chunk of it is, but not completely.
Okay. All right. I will. The first thing I'm going to do is go and take a look at that again, and because you've probably added stuff to it since I've seen it, And I'll see what's left there that needs to be said so Open Airware knows what's going on. And if you can take that document and say, hey, get started on the UI with this.
Mhm.
And bear in mind, these are my requirements. You know, it's the branding, the colors, and what it is you think makes it easy. Then you can give that to the person that Moses has who can create a demo that way, and then we can all look at it. And that'll be useful guidance for Open Airware as well.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, great. So what do we need to do on this side of things?
Well,
Do like a couple sentence overview of what this connection with Elorium is going to look like. Like, what will they want from us, and what will we be giving and getting? Just the basic overview.
so I had made an assumption that the faster we get to software, the better we would be. So I suggested this lightweight demo that didn't include connections to outside electronic health records.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's a chunk of work that has to be done there. We don't know what the other EHRs we're talking about. And then so I made that as a fundamental assumption. I don't know if that's okay with you or not. If that's okay, and we do that as a demo and we try to fast track that, and we push the MVP out a little bit until we get some experience from the user interface and the demo, you know, then we can add the other components afterwards. And that may be what Moses needs also in order to get the DID. Certainly consensus needs some time, obviously. But we need to get that DID on blockchain and the tokenization into development as well. And I'm not assuming Open Airware is doing that. You may want them to, but we should talk to Moses about that.
Does that mean, Steve? Does that mean that the first step basically would be the electronic wellness record, without even the without the ability to pull in EHRs and translate them? Correct. Basically,
well, that's what I'm thinking would be fastest to develop.
Okay.
I think the guys in Michigan, our developers, when they gave us the estimate of 2 months, that included integration with one EHR in particular. And what I was doing in my mind was making a trade-off between doing that and doing the customized screens with all the abilities that you want for people to be able to create their own kinds of records and or practitioners to do that. So I was assuming there's sort of I free up development on one side and then eat it up on the side that we want for the EWR. And that was my thought about getting something going faster. That's why I chose that particular thought process.
Do you have a slide that shows what Elorium would offer Wellness Ledger, like just chunked? I just need like a basic chunking, because I'm still a little bit lost, because I heard you say demo from Elorium, and now I'm hearing, is that so we don't need to do the demo that I was considering anymore? I'm a little lost.
No. The demo you were considering is one to help you get the UI designed completely. That's not a real demo.
Yeah.
Right? There's no data in there.
Yeah.
And if they had data, they couldn't show it anyway.
So then we would slap that UI on top of the working demo that you're talking about. Is that right?
That would be the source of requirements
Yeah.
for the user interface for the demo that I'm talking about. So I'm separating them out, that the demo you were referring to is really a way of looking at the screens and the flow and deciding whether that's what you want or not. It doesn't actually cause, there would be code there, but it would be code that was built for, not for an application, it's built for InDesign, or there are a number of applications that do these demos as well.
Something just basic. So
Yeah.
the user interface, and then we could put that into, or work that into the demo that you're talking about that's working, where we could gather data and they could be working together.
Yes.
So great. So I think creating a slide that tells like the basics of the situation right now, starting out, like what Allurium is, like what Wellness Ledger looks like with Allurium, right? So within maybe you already had it, but after the 2 months, like what's Wellness Ledger?
Well, Wellness Ledger is going to continue to develop its capabilities through partners like Clue. Right? The demo is not going to integrate distributed reviews. It's not going to integrate the payment system. Those are things that come after that have to be done. And Open Airware may or may not be involved in that. You can, if you think of them as a development team that's available to do stuff for Wellness Ledger, then they can take on projects like that, ongoing projects. But you're going to have, there's a lot of development to do, and you're going to want to do refinement on the user interface as well as you get more and more feedback. And you're going to want Open Airware to continue doing that. So if you look at this, I don't know if you can see the, did I share my screen? Yes, I did. Okay. So I kind of created levels for what the choices are, right? And 1A is basically, Allurium is a supplier, customizer, and integrator, and ongoing support for Open Airware tools. The tools are Arcana, Alchemy, Arcana Lite. Those, we think of them as tools. So that's kind of, let's get the demo done, level, if you will. And on a continuing basis, as you add more things and you need our help to integrate, then we'll be there to support that going forward. Another possibility is that you also ask for help on the strategy, funding, and business development side, or just the funding side, or whatever. And that's basically Don and not Open Airware. It's Don and me, in essence, helping to get money in other ways than just consensus. And so I think of those as kind of, we can create an agreement that just focuses on those things. And the other levels are things that Allurium would really like to get from Wellness Ledger. So Allurium wants to have this nonprofit and a global directory for people who can't really pay for healthcare, and we're going to be giving them tools for finding out how to get money to pay for their medical care and things like that. And so what we want is to have the two global directories, the Wellness Ledger one and the Allurium one, to be separate and independent, but to be linked together. So if you've got someone who's sitting in a smokehouse, not a smokehouse, a hothouse, whatever they're calling them, happens to have a cardiologist in Colorado, they're all linked, right? And that's what you really want to have. And so we're going to be serving that indigenous community for the most part. And Wellness Ledger wants to be able to integrate with it. The way we do that is to integrate the directories, and we keep our businesses, one of which is nonprofit, separate. That's level 2. Level 3, we want to be able to use, Allurium wants to be able to use Wellness Ledger as the platform. And so we end up being able to take those transactions from people who can afford a little bit, at least, to be able to provide those transactions through Wellness Ledger, and Wellness Ledger, has more users and makes more money as a result. That's kind of what level 2 is about. We don't want to have to invent a separate Wellness Ledger. We just want to use Wellness Ledger. That's what level 3 is all about. And then Moses said, well, maybe Wellness Ledger wants to be able to fund nonprofits, and that's yet another level. So that's from our perspective today, that's the distant future. But at the very least, I think if we can put an agreement together for level 1A and 1B, Wellness Ledger would be well served. You will get your demo, and the demo can move to an MVP, and so on. And we'll also be able to help connect you to the people that we're already connected to, like the health information exchanges in several of the states that we have relationships with, getting you in front of them. That's part of the business development, if you will. Perhaps finding an angel who we think is going to be really interested in Wellness Ledger and can provide a bunch of money. All those are good things to do. So in answering Dowa's question and yours, Gaia, about what should we do first, I recommend doing a combination of these in the first agreement, and then moving on from there.
Great.
Can I ask you a question about level 3, Steve?
Yes.
So Allurium Wellness, what is that about? What function would that provide?
Yeah.
And
so
how do you see Wellness Ledger supporting that?
Yeah. Let me end the show, and I think this might help. So if you look at where we're going, we have a corporation called Allurium Healthcare. We have a exclusive relationship with Open Airware, and the main focus we have right now is on getting, well, what we want it to be is getting your demo done. Either way, we're going to build something for Westminster Medical Center, which is like a 95% overlap between the two of them, which is why I came up with this, how I came up with this idea. And then at the corporate level, if you will, Allurium Healthcare provides services, business development, wellness, real estate, and technology, strategy, funding, all that stuff. Allurium Wellness is a nonprofit we will be forming very soon. It's intended to be a 501c3 nonprofit. And what it's there to do is to serve the kind of two groups of people, indigenous populations, because they have all this healing knowledge and medication knowledge, and teachers and artists. We have real estate in the form of locations that are going to, one of which is up and running in Colorado now, which will have organic farm and whole plant foods and lodges and so on to hold events for healers and teachers and various artists who serve, it seems, a lot of this community. And so it's a nonprofit, and it has to be physically separated, can't generate profits, and we can't profit from it either. And so this is just to do good. That's the whole focus of it. And so they're going to be patient groups and who are looking, like cancer patients who are looking for other ways to ease their pain, or be able to do meditation and so on. And there's stuff that we can bring in terms of a community of knowledge to them. But this is basically for people who really can't pay for normal stuff. And we're talking about practitioners who give their services away because they just want to do good. And that's the community we're serving. It's really not a community that Wellness Ledger has been looking at. But to the extent that we have it and we link our global directories, then Wellness Ledger gets access to that and can monetize that to the extent it's monetizable.
Yeah, that's very much, helps very much. And then maybe say a little bit more about the linking of the directories. How do you see them as distinct? And
Right.
What would be the linkage?
So if you may or may not understand the technology of directories, but directories can talk to one another. And in essence, they share their contents with one another. And that's what I mean by the linking. And the way, sorry, something just popped up which distracted me. So the idea is Wellness Ledger is going to be adding practitioners and patients, given its strategy focus in certain markets. It's going to be adding people and adding people. Wellness Ledger isn't after those people. But on the other hand, there will be overlap between the healers and the teachers and so on that are in our directory that we need to share, what we want to share with Wellness Ledger, because that will help Wellness Ledger expand into this area that isn't your primary focus. It's something I'm sure you want to do, but isn't your primary focus. And we're just, so the linking of the directories allows that to happen while
And would there be a linking of data, like, because
yeah,
maybe
well, clearly,
data would be
yeah, you have
helpful
to.
too, especially the indigenous data. And Steve, I want to say that this is something that I'm very aligned with what you're doing in the with the Alorium Wellness, the nonprofit. I think that's remarkable work, and I totally see it being able to integrate with Wellness Ledger, and it has such a grounded aspect in my heart, you know, from my studies with indigenous medicines and health, and I think that information and gathering that information is it's almost, to me, crucial, like, because so much of it has vanished, and I don't want to see any more of it vanish. And I think that tapping in and giving resources to communities of healers who don't want to, they want to work off trade or don't want to do it, they want to do nonprofit themselves. I mean, they don't really have access to a lot, and I think that offering them that is very helpful. And I'd love to be linked with that personally.
Yeah, what we need to do is make sure that we're not stomping on each other's business, so to speak. And I think we can avoid that, but we want to be clear about it so there aren't any surprises. And
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also clear with obviously we have to be clear with the people who use the ledger, you know, so that it's clear what potentially their data is used for.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
my only thought is, like, I mean, yours is a nonprofit, so I mean, if you were offering the same services that we were offering, but at a no cost or lower cost, I think that would be competitive. But I mean, as long as that's not going on, I think that it could be really synergistic.
yeah, it's just something to be aware of. Don is very concerned that his desire is for Wellness Ledger to be highly successful, and he doesn't want to have any conflict at all. And so we just need to be very clear about it. And I think, unfortunately, that clarity has to come with time. I don't think it's anything we can just say, yeah, let's this is okay, that's okay. We're going to have to be working that through. Moses, you're on. You've joined us.
Hi, I'm sorry, I was really badly jet lagged.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Gaia, did you had more that you wanted to ask, Odawa?
I had heard you mention that Alluring wanted to work on the Wellness Ledger platform. So I was just wondering what the vision was for that. What was the idea of how that would unfold?
You're completely breaking up. I think Moses, maybe you want to mute.
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay. You want to try that again, Gaia?
Sure. Yeah, so you had mentioned about Olorium working off the Wellness Ledger platform. So I wanted to hear about what your vision of that is, because I think that is you being a nonprofit and you offering the service for a no or low profit, that was the only thing that I could see right now, maybe being a competition, because people are like, ooh, we can get this for a low cost or whatever, or no cost, through Olorium, So how would it differ? How would that differ from our model?
That's a real good question, and I don't envision that wellness ledgers being given away. It'll still have the ability to provide tokens and to charge for the services that it provides. I don't see that changing very much, to the extent that the nonprofit can offset some of the cost. We would probably try to do that, but Wellness Ledger will just be Wellness Ledger. We just want to be able to say that you can use the Wellness Ledger platform, and you will be on our directory and their directory, and be able to link your practitioners together. In that sense, you can think of it as a reselling.
Okay, great.
I have something to add.
Yeah.
I think that having a nonprofit component is a brilliant idea. What's more, a percentage of the token sale could be donated to that nonprofit, with the explicit statement that clinics in low-income neighborhoods will be able to get this for free.
Right.
That would actually be a huge statement that would position us opposite of in contradiction and against existing healthcare practices, and it kind of paves its own way to make the better world a better place.
Right.
And
okay.
Yep.
Oh, can I add something else I wanted to tell you guys?
Yeah.
I think that Allurium's user interface is very basic, and it needs to be spruced up. And I think that one thing we can do is think about how to make it look prettier. Because right now what it does is it shows how it works functionally. It doesn't show how it could work someday with better user interface design. So I think it would make sense. We have a designer in the Philippines online, and waiting for this. Yeah, so if we add this to a requirement, she could actually help design a better interface that's much more beautiful, and then we could use that too.
We were just talking about that before you joined us, Moses. What I had heard from Gaia was that you had someone who could do at least a UI-based, as opposed to data-based demo, so we could actually envision the flow from screen to screen. And
that would be. Remember the quick demo I did? I sent you, that was based on Adobe XD.
Yes.
So we could do the Adobe XD thing with this flow as the new concept.
Perfect.
And the price that, because she's based in the Philippines, she actually won an award for being one of the best UX designers in the Philippines, and the entire cost is $400.
Oh, my God.
Amazing.
I think we can afford that.
Yeah.
Well, that would be terrific. Have you seen the?
Gentlemen and lady, I would have to excuse myself now. The plane is taking off.
Okay.
I stayed on, but literally now we are on the tarmac. So I'll listen to the end of this call on the recording, and then we'll follow up. Steve,
Right.
let me know, and Gaia as well, and Moses, by when we need to make a decision. And if it's tomorrow, then I'll be available to touch base and make that together.
Well, I think we already have a decision, and that is to move forward, in which case there's a lot of work to do on agreements. And I think then you have a real decision to make based on these are the agreements. Well, anyway,
Do you want to take a first crack at a draft, Steve, of this agreement?
I will pull something together because I somehow I don't think Moses has the time to do that, and I have a general idea, and also just to let you know, in the world of medicine and medical stuff, there are some regulations around HIPAA you're well aware of, I'm sure, but those regulations require that we have that to do this development, that there's an agreement that's called a BA or business agreement that says that both sides are going to follow HIPAA compliance and so on and so forth. And so that'll be like a separate agreement that the developers who are certified in this manner are clean. And so there'll be a bunch of agreements, and we'll just have to see. I'm going to take a cut at what I think is the right thing to do, and then you guys can just hack away at the extent of it and decide if you want to focus more.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds very good. Okay, everyone.
Okay. Have a safe flight.
Thank you. Talk to you very soon.
Take care.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Okay, so my other comment is Gaia, are you back on?
I'm on.
Okay. I kind of like the Dr. Kronos interface because they were trying to make it work on an iPhone. It simplifies it significantly.
Yeah.
So if you look at their iPad interface, it's sort of like in between a desktop and an iPhone. Maybe we could learn from that and try to just make it look prettier. And the term is mobile responsive. Okay.
yep.
So we could use that as an example. Yeah, and I think the other thing we need to do is update the slide deck with explanation of how we're moving towards HIPAA compliance and integrating existing EHR. And then the final piece is starting to mock up what an acupuncturist EHR input form might look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's it.
Guy, is that something you will do?
Are you there? Guy, did you get bumped off?
Oh no.
She's still
She's
marked as in.
She's still there. Oh dear.
Well, we could just, this is being recorded so she could catch up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What I want to ask you, have you seen the requirements document? so far? The one that's online?
I haven't. I actually gave Gaia a template,
Yes.
and then she wrote it up, and I never looked at it after that. Did you guys continue working on it? Is it getting there?
I haven't done anything with it either, but my intent was to get deeply into it. But the reason I asked was that Gaia said that she had specified the user interface in that document. And the last time I saw it, I don't remember seeing it, but it's probably there now. I wanted to get your opinion as to whether that.
I haven't had a chance. And this week I'll be preparing for the conference next week in New York. Oh, that's another issue is and I don't know if Guy can hear us or not. So so Langdon is coming to. I managed to get a booth for free. It's like a $7,000 freebie at this conference. So Langdon immediately jumped on it and produced banners and giveaways. He's very quick at that.
Yeah.
So I suggest to Gaia that since she needs practice pitching, she should fly out and just work the booth along with Langdon and Claire. So she's thinking about doing that. If she does that, she's going to need a smaller deck, like a 5 to 10 slide deck. It's a modification of what we have now as a short pitch deck that she could show people. And she'll probably also need a handout that she could, just an 8.5 by 11 handout to people who are interested, and have that printed up and brought. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I also need some time to work on your the CPO deck.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we should work on that as well. I'll work on that this weekend and set another rev out. But yeah, that one we're barreling ahead with that one, and we're not doing a full announcement, but we'll do a sneak peek to people. So Howard is the iOS developer is doing a revised version. Oh, hello.
You there?
Hey, it's me. Yeah, I wasn't able to get on my computer and do the visual, so I'm just going to listen and do it on my phone.
We were just talking about you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You hear your ears burning?
Well, here I am.
Do you think you'll be able to make it out to New York for the Blockchain East conference?
What, you said it was the 6th through the 8th, right? October?
It's 8th through the 10th. And it's actually
8th through the 10th? Yeah, I mean, I just, it's a little bit last minute, so I need to that a little more.
Okay, so the 8th is
I'm like 50%.
Yeah, so let me just give you the details. The 8th is a half day. We're just like prepping and building out the booth, which will take 10 minutes. We printed out those roll-up charts and prepared. Claire and Langdon will be working the show on the 9th, and Claire will be half day there on the 10th. It's about 125, 150 people, so it's not a huge show, but it's like the last one, except it's not, the focus isn't on health. And there will be investors. And the other things, Consensus has some people in New York. They might drop by, or they might be at the conference. So it'd be good to just say hi and keep that dialogue going. And then it would also give you a very good opportunity to pitch the concept deck to people, because you need to do it like 20 times to kind of embed it into your subconscious. So if you wanted to come, you'd be welcome to do that. Also, Claire and I have rented a nice little unit in the Upper West Side that's really cheap, so you can just stay there for free. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just I have a bunch of clients booked over those 3 days, so it would be an issue of having to rebook everybody, and it's kind of an issue to get a flight, and so that's why I'd like to be out there. I just I needed a little bit more notice.
To see what you want to do, and let us know if you want to be there. It'll be a good chance to practice the pitch if you wanted to. Okie doke.
Yeah.
But
Okay, cool.
at the very least, what you could do is go ahead and do a one-page handout, and then just give it to Claire so that she'll print it out and bring it, and we can hand it out for
Okay.
you. Okay.
Great.
All right. That's that.
Hey, Moses, is this going to be a Javits or at a Hilton, or where's the conference?
We have New Yorker. Javits is like for large conferences. This is going to be a relatively small conference, and it's focused on enterprise speakers.
Okay, got it. Just curious. All right, so just to get, since you didn't mention it, I suspect this is okay with you, but the idea of what we might do as an absolute first kind of real demo would be, in essence, to create what I'm showing here. Can you see this?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Okay. So, you know, this is from this left side is from the your architecture chart. I just, put down the same names that we were using on there. And this is the mapping to the open airware technologies. And what I don't have here, that I'm saying is, let's not bother with an external EHR right now. Let's just get a demo out there first. And then we move towards the MVP, which would include the EHR integration. I don't know if I think that's sufficient or not.
So one thing you have to think about is, are you going to keep the records on a blockchain, or the blockchain are the records actually on a side chain? What's actually being stored on the blockchain? Are you going to use smart contracts and Ethereum, in which case you're basically automating the database triggers for the EHR on top of Ethereum, or in fact using the Ethereum virtual machine as a way of running the entire system? The issue there is the cost of Ethereum is kind of high right now because they haven't scaled up. But I think by the time that they scale up, it's a reasonable price tag for the gas used to drive the Ethereum virtual machine. What's your thinking about the EVM?
So I'm trying to accomplish perhaps too many things in doing this, but the idea was not to, on the demo at least, not to have records on the blockchain at all. Just use the main blockchain as to store the access information, valid identity and the access information. And I wasn't thinking about doing anything with smart contracts at this point, unless we have development resources outside. Because I'm trying to do this, I'm proposing to do this in a very short period of time. I just want to leverage our developers to do what they do best, what they've been doing all along. And my thought was that we'd be using Kunal perhaps as the fellow who's creating the directory, the DID over Ethereum global directory. And we'd be using his resources or his capabilities to integrate that piece in. Can my guys do it? Yes, they can do it. They're also looking into Adrian's HIE for one, open source, and getting familiar with that. And they may be in a good position to leverage that if we chose to go in that direction. So I really need more input about that.
So just to let you know, John and Adrian are both like really happy to hear that Consensus is interested. So I think that there would be very strong support to that happen. So they're happy to if Consensus does the due diligence call with them, they're both happy to say that they're going to throw in. The other thing you should know is Uport just decided to use John's code.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
Oh, that's
actually
great.
a big thing. So there may be a kind of tie-in there, but we picked the right guys between John and Adrian are the two top people in this identity world, so we could connect that in. If we just do identity and then access records for your healthcare on the blockchain, that's probably plenty. If the other thing is we really can't put any EHR on blockchain because someday crypto people may be able to break the blockchain security, in which case PII would end up on the open internet in a blockchain. So it actually makes complete sense to keep the actual EHR record off of it. However, I do recommend that we come up with one screen full of places we could use smart contracts as a way of convincing consensus to give us money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so if you look at some of the operations that are done, the first and most obvious one is accessing your records. That's a permissioning statement, and that would be stored on the blockchain and mediated by decentralized ID identifiers.
Right.
Another one would be issuing a claim. So the claim itself, the record would be held in the insurance company database and our database, but the actual insurance claim would be converted into a verifiable claim. So that's another possibility. Another one I think would be third-party explanation of what a certain EHR record means with the token provided. That could also be stored in the EHR as a comment record. But then the fact that a link to that explanation and a pointer to what it's explaining could be stored on the blockchain or something like that. But I think a lot of things we're thinking about, we just have to convert that into what it means as a smart contract, and that way we can get their token foundry people to help us guesstimate how much it'll cost and what it'll take to develop that. So those are all equivalent to care records, that care cards that what's their name? Solve.care is doing.
Yeah.
So I think if we do that, it's an interesting model. And at some point, we should go back and talk to. My belief is that once we're larger, Solve.care will be begging for a deal because they avoided EHR and they really need to merge. So there's a possibility of working with them at a later time.
Okay. I like the idea of the verifiable claim because that's a very relevant use case.
By the way, the one use case that John's working on is a vaccination record. That's his MVP product. So if you look at that should happen. But AHI of one we should be able to get Adrian to modify that as an example for us, and then talk about integrating it. So Adrian said that he would love to figure out how to make money with HIE of one, and if we integrated his team into this, he would be exceedingly happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the first example that you gave me, I don't think I captured all of that in my brain. Access the record.
Yeah.
This is really just using DID in the blockchain to validate you are who you are. And if you are a practitioner, it will also determine whether you have access to that record or the information in that record.
Yeah, so what it is it's a function in a verifiable claim called a selective disclosure.
Okay. That
And
makes
that's all it, so that means that somebody with a did came in and said, I want this data. And what happened was that our check-in code will state, so, you know, so-and-so walked into the office and provided permission to this DID to access your health records. And then that gets remembered in the global database. So at a later time, anybody who's ever viewed it would immediately be remembered. And that new person, if they added a record, it would remember that a record was added to the system.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be able to pull up the chain of provenance and interactions with your EHR to look at each piece.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay. Now I understand. The key thing I was missing was the selective disclosure form of
Right.
verifiable claim. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Excellent. All right.
Gaia? You still there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I just had myself on mute.
We do need a little bit of spec work. I don't know. I think I don't have time this week to help on that, but I think Steve does. Someone needs to look at Dr. Kronos, copy some screenshots, kind of copy what really looks good from there, or the idea of what looks good in there as an example. And then I think it's time to go ahead and kick off, what's her name, Michelle, as the designer, and get a few things out of her. So I think that you should tell her that the first step is do a couple, like 2 or 3 designs for us. So one would be like, what does it look like when someone logs in? And then what does it look like when you redesign the check-in function, and then redesign what it looks like when you get a permission, when you ask for permission to release your records. And then I think you need to take a couple of the slides that Steve has provided for what the I guess the Arcana does, that lightweight EHR does, with the example of perhaps a chiropractic record, and then just mock that up using something that is mobile responsive and kind of pretty. And then once she has those slides, then she can begin doing the XD interactive demo using those individual screenshots. Okay? That makes sense?
Okay, so you said, let me make sure we have it correct. So we're taking screenshots of the Kronos.
Yeah.
Right, Dr. Kronos. Okay, and we want to give a spec write-up of what it looks like when someone signs in, and then also when they check in and release their records. And then there was a third one that you had said, and what was that?
What it looks like when the doctor adds a record. And that would be something very similar to what Steve is providing with the Allurium stuff. So what we're going to do is kind of redesign what Allurium would look like with mobile responsive UI.
Great. Okay, cool. So, that's great. I'd say we try to get this out in the next 2 days. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. One thing you could do is also add a chatbot, because Rutu says it's definitely doable, and it's actually not that difficult once we have full funding to add a chatbot. So the chatbot,
it converts speech to text, right? And actually, that other company has one as well. Did you see that they have one working?
They do. I didn't.
Yeah, they do.
That D Clinic.
Yeah, D Clinic.
Yeah.
So what do they do for text to speech? Do they actually do AI on it, or is it just like a chatbot that does customer service?
Well, you're more technically inclined. I didn't gather those details when I was reading it. Did you gather that, Steve?
I didn't see a real explanation of how that works, and I think the AI is further in the system and not on the voice user interface.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is just what Rutu told me is when you try to do AI on actual medicine, it never works and people die. It's like very high risk and very low success rate. So Watson has already killed people, and there are lawsuits. So she strongly suggests avoiding that kind of AI. She said limited AI in small areas of deployment are very successful. So if you're just listening to what a doctor says about what they did and turning that into a record, which the doctor has to review before entering, there's like very little risk. And that's actually very doable. So it looks like magic. But if you try to, use anything to assess what kind of disease someone has, and the doctor or the system will be liable for the diagnosis. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we need to have an interface description that describes the limited AI chatbot that when the doctor says what they did, but the doctor has to approve the write-up before it's sent out.
No, before it's entered into the database. Like, okay. In this case, you're just saying, I gave someone a 45-minute colonic, and they appear to have gas. There was, 4 fills. There was an implant, and that's what you say. Just say to that, and then that would actually turn into a record that would say everything you're saying, and then you would say, okay, enter that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So I can work on that. I can work on the someone signs in part and the check-in and release records part. Steve, do you think you have a minute to write up what when the doctor adds a record? So because you're linked in with the Allurium, do you think you'd be able to write that up for the designer?
I will do my best. I'll take a crack at it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think if you just had a nicer interface like Dr. Corona shows or whatever, and you add a chatbot, and then you should never use the word limited with AI because it kind of defeats your sales. You use the term domain specific. It's crazy, but it's like you never say I have a limited AI I'm going to do so everyone feels safe. You say I have a domain specific AI that's just for entering records. Then they go, oh, but it's like not saying I have a thing of limited usefulness. Okay.
Very good. Very good.
Great.
Okay, so kind of to summarize, I'm going to take a stab at putting together an agreement for us to look at, and once we agree, we can send that over to Don and have him look at it, and then we'll go from there. That's the agreement side of things, and I'm going to look at the spec as well, and I don't know when I'm going to get time to do that, but I'm going to do that, and then Gaia in parallel is working on specifications for the views, the screen views that she would like, and get that over to the Philippines and get some stuff back quickly so we can, make sure the direction is right.
One of the things about Michelle is because she's charging not so much money, it's less quick than you'd like. It's like she does it when she has time.
Yeah.
Assume there's like a 1 week turnaround for anything she does. Yeah. But then that you also need to, you can't like wait until last minute and say, I need this in a week. Gaia, you need to call her, email her immediately, say, we're going to send you the stuff in 2 days. Are you able to work on it then? And then I would actually give her half of the 400 up front. And then that'll get her attention. She'll say, yes, I am. And then that way, when you do get the stuff, she'll actually have it kind of slotted into her work schedule. And she'll
okay, what's her email? I'll send it to her right now.
You'll need to look for the email that I sent you introducing the two of you.
Okay.
Do a search in your email for it. Okay. Anything else?
I think we're pretty squared away, actually.
Okay. Then
you have anything else you want to ask Moses, Gaia, before we lose him?
No, that's great. I'll check in with you guys later. I'll try to write that up tonight, and I'll send her out that email today.
Okie dokie.
All righty.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks. Talk soon.
Take care.
Steve.
Bye.
Steve.
Yep. I'm
Let's
still
talk
here.
about CPO before you hang out.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we just need a couple of decks that make it more like a traditional fundraising deck. I did come up with the use of funds that I sent off to Parker's guy, but I think we need a general. When I wrote it, I didn't write it for as a fundraising deck. I just wrote it as a concept explanation that I'm sending to a few whale investor types or CTOs I know to get them to either put up $100 grand each or join our advisory team. So I'm going to send this to like the former CTO of Ripple and a couple of like bigger players to get them interested, because it's kind of a big play and they need to understand it. But if you could just like remember what goes into a fundraising deck, because I can't even remember that anymore. Like,
I do, and there's a lot of information missing that would be helpful. Like, how are you going to make revenue from this?
Yeah,
Little stuff like that.
Let me tell you what my thought is on that. That's actually a central thing. So the first way we make revenues is by selling an attention token, and then getting a piece of it. So if because we have a list of people who are verified whales because of the verified claim, we have this attention token we're going to sell, and we could actually use that to estimate how many new ICOs there will be and how many of them will capture into the system and how many will want to pay for access to whales. Okay, so, and I think that what we do is we should look at the basic attention token as a model. I think they're taking like 25% as their fee. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's the first step. The second step is, if you're not advertising to a whale, would you like to advertise to everybody else who isn't a whale? And that would be like, we could do something that's like AdSense and just charge an advertising fee that's based on, you either pay for a look, pay for a click, or pay for a completion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the first piece that's based on the current app that Howard has, the Fusion app. The second piece has to do with the actual combinatorials. So for stage one is to do it with a fee, which is probably going to be for the first, for if you're a whale, it'll be a set fee that you could do optimizations for free for a month, for some amount of money per month. And then if you're not a whale, it's going to cost you more. So people doing large transactions get a discounted rate. If you're a smaller person, you can actually pay per optimization, or you could pay for a monthly subscription fee to do it, a minimum like 1 day a month. But whales would actually be able to do this every time they want. We may be doing this continuously every 5 minutes, like optimizing 300 and doing it. In which case, and if there's 20,000 people that want to get in, there's going to be a pipeline that you have to wait through. So, so that's the issue right now, is that if you had a little computing system, right now we're thinking about doing that with an offline server network. I mean, a multi-server configuration, doing the optimization for like 300 portfolios simultaneously. Now we could actually buy up a number of those and do like 3,000 every 5 minutes, which means if we had 100,000 users, you'd have to wait 30 times 5 minutes, like a couple of hours to re-optimize. And I think that means that a high-end user with a 1 month program would pay X dollars, like $1,000 to do that. And if we had 1,000, was like $1 million a month to run a set of systems. And then The other thing we can do is, so that's for market orders. So we look at what the price of a coin is, and then we fix it, and then we just do the optimizations in the number of shares space. However, if a whale, if they're going to unload 10,000 Bitcoin and the current price is 6,000, they would love to just have anyone do it at 5,500, right? Or 5,700. So they will give what's called a limit order instead of a market order. So you know all this stuff, right?
I understand that, yeah.
Okay. So if they do a market order of like 5,750, they could, God, if I went to the open market, it would tank the price, and I don't want that to affect it. But if you do it this way, and there's exactly the same number of shares being traded, you can't tank the price because we're reporting that there was no change in the number of shares owned, which is kind of an interesting system, right? But there may be actually more Bitcoins being offloaded, and so it would have an effect on the price after the exchange, which is kind of an interesting system if we get more and more market share. But anyway, if we do that, if there's someone that really wants Bitcoin, they want to offload either Ethereum, or if they did an ICO and they just have a lot of ICO and they want to exchange it to other kinds of currency, or stablecoin, or to go to Bitcoin and then stablecoin, they would say, my market order is, I know if I place an order to buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin, it would actually spike the market. So I'm willing to pay 6,100. So that $400 spread is called price improvement. Because if you came to a price of 59, the person asking for 5,700 got 59, so I got $200 price improvement, and someone bidding 61 got 59. So they didn't have to pay as much. So both sides are happy. And usually what you could do is take $100 out of that, so that instead of getting 200 and 200, they would get 150 each, and you get $100. That price improvement participation would be, the rough estimate is that it's worth like 10 times more than a fee to us. So theoretically, we could run the entire system with no transaction fees, guarantee price improvement, and risk reduction.
It's not unlike the what VCs do, right? With they create basically a bundle of money, and they take some of the profits out and put it in there, and that's that they share it with amongst the partners. I forgot what they call that, but yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, it's a cute. I think it's called it's something pool, equity pool for yeah, but I think it's different. But so that's the revenue model that we actually moved to, a percentage of price improvement for limit orders, and that doesn't mean that you have to do that, right? You just have to say, I'm willing to do this, and what happens is you waive a fee if we do this, or we could actually charge a fee and that, depending, or we could charge a larger percentage on the limit order price improvement if you don't pay a fee. So if you pay a fee, you get a smaller hit. So we have all sorts of angles for doing that, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to run simulations and pilots, is not to test if it works, but to test if this this business model works. Because if we create a system that lets you optimize your portfolio and do exchanges at no cost, that's actually disrupting Wall Street significantly.
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So that's the revenue slide, but I think the other slides will need, like, I could send you what I sent Parker's people for short-term use of funds, but we need to do something for the larger term use of funds.
Okay.
And then and then if you just tell me what slides to add, I can actually just add some slides to the fundraising deck and say we need this, and then this is what I did for X company, and then I'll just do a first pass and give it back to you. Okay.
Well, we definitely need So you want to give this some thought already. Something that describes the market and market
Yes.
size, the opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Talk to you later.
You bet. Bye-bye.